All right. Good. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today. It's so good to have you here.
Fantastic to be here, Matt. As always, I'm really pumped at all the cool things we'll be talking about and sharing with your audience.
Yes, I'm super excited as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to just introduce Cheryl Leong, the one and only. She is Chief Freedom Officer at the Growth Hub, where they help businesses automate, systematize, and scale their operations so they can build businesses that give them freedom, not just another job. What makes her unique is her ability to see the big picture while also driving the nitty-gritty details of how a business runs. There's a blend of strategic vision, systems thinking, and deep understanding of human psychology to help businesses grow sustainably. Beyond that, she's about freedom. She lives it. Her personal mission is to build businesses that are both highly profitable and deeply impactful, allowing entrepreneurs, everyone, to design the life they love. How amazing is that? Thank you so much, Cheryl, for joining us. That's an awesome bio. And I appreciate you spending your time with us today because we're going to dive into some really cool stuff today. We're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about scaling. We're talking about building businesses. And also we're going to talk about some really cool mindset stuff. And what I love about you, Cheryl, and we've been talking amongst us for so many years now. It's been
We have,
backwards and forwards.
we have that, haven't we? Goodness. And back in the time when Matt was hustling at 2 in the morning as well, and how
Back
you've
in the day.
I love all these minds. I know the mindset kind of conversations we've had as well, and I'm sure there'll be stuff that we'll share with today's
Yes,
audience.
it's so good. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking a little bit about stuff. So, Cheryl has a business which she operates, and the idea of that business is that she helps businesses automate and scale through systems. And a lot of us know as entrepreneurs how important it is to have systems, to leverage systems. But a lot of us get a bit confused and, you know, a bit overwhelmed when it comes to technology and trying to figure out the things that work and don't work. Do you want to give us a little bit of an insight, Cheryl, as to what you're up to and what do you do for people and a little bit about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory to begin with, right? When a lot of us start off businesses going, this is the vision. And I'm like, all right, if I just focus on the vision, everything sort of falls into place. And we don't know what we don't know. And business starts off being almost like a ball of stuff. And if you're anything like me, when I first started, I just sort of thought, if I add people to it, it will just happen. It will just miraculously all come together. And that was sort of my first foray into understanding what the power of systems was about. And because a lot of my business is also run by virtual assistants or virtual teams, and we also help businesses with virtual assistants. But a big part of what I saw was it's not enough to just have a virtual assistant or anyone in your team that's an absolute unicorn. Like you can't necessarily employ 20, 20 unicorns because ultimately they need to be guided by what your systems and processes are. And that's when we start to go, all right, let's start to pull back and document how we do things. We start to do that for our clients as well. And then putting in technology to support that to create efficiencies. And that's when we start to really see things start to scale and bringing on star players just meant there was one extra bonus that they could just push and leverage and scale businesses. So
So,
that's
so,
what we
so
do.
just a second. So you started out by just starting to hire people. That was the starting point.
That was just it was to hire people. I
Just
am not.
hire people. What was your criteria for hiring people at that stage? Was it just like you have,
Oh,
did
I
you
had.
have did you have something in mind? What did it look like when you started hiring people?
I back in. I'm talking about early in the day when my one of the first books I read about business, apart from Rich Dad Poor Dad, was The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Oh,
Because
good
in my
book.
mind, this was I'm thinking it was probably about 15 years ago, and I was like, I don't want to be working crazy hours. I want to, we're going to start family soon. I want to make sure we build lifestyle businesses. And the idea of 4 hour work week was like, whoa. And in that book, he talked about freelancers. And I went, freelancers sound amazing. So I sort of launched my online business at the time, and I went, I'm doing all these menial tasks. I need a freelancer. So I was like, freelancer, come help me. But I had no instruction for them. I just had it all in my head. I'm like, okay, Miss Freelancer, who was a miss at the time. I'm like, I need this, and this, and I was very fortunate. She was very operationally driven. I'm sure
Good.
she helped me a lot in terms of my operations, but I was stuck. She was probably at that time for that particular business my only employee because I didn't know how to scale otherwise, right? But over the years, and it took me a while, Matt, admittedly, to realize that I needed to put systems and processes in place because I was not innately or naturally a systematic type of person. I
Right.
became
So
the
you started out like most of us, just randomly doing stuff, throwing stuff at the wall, and
what would
then
stick. What would stick exactly. And the turning point for me, Matt, actually was when I had one of my EAs, after hiring and firing about 6 different EAs in different capacities and getting better at finding the right type of person, one of my real star EAs, as my new businesses grew, I promoted her to a new position, and I went, oh, I need a new EA to replace her, and I went, actually, I've got a document. I'm going to get her to do all the training and the onboarding. And so I create, between her and I, we created a whole new process for the EA for onboarding, what her systems were, connected all her tasks in ClickUp. So we use a project management tool called ClickUp. And so
yeah.
she knew that this new EA knew exactly what her daily tasks were, what her ad hoc tasks were, and I didn't even onboard that EA. 2 weeks in, she was onboarded by my old EA. And since then, that's been the whole process. Like I don't do any onboarding for my EAs.
So good. So you deal with virtual assistants. Talk to me. What was your thought process? So there's a lot of hype and a lot of information out there about virtual assistants these days.
Yeah.
Give me some. What are your thought process around virtual assistants?
Why virtual assistants? Because I noticed, and as a small business owner in Australia, I noticed that there were so many small businesses that struggled to break through the next level from
But I
and
mean, for you
for me
personally.
personally, that was the exact thing. I was so overwhelmed. I was doing everything. I was sending out emails at 2 or 3 in the morning. And I went, I need to find a cost effective way of someone helping me to be able to then focus on high value stuff that could really bring money in the door. And then first to pay myself well. But I
Were
need to
you were you were you nervous about hiring your first assistant?
I wasn't probably nervous because I was probably ignorant. I was like, I'll just get someone to help me do stuff. So I was probably excited
Yeah,
by that idea. In saying that, I grew up in Singapore. I spent a few years there, and the idea of having someone help you, because we had helpers at home. And so the
yeah,
idea of having people help was not foreign to me from that sense. What was
gotcha.
foreign to me was them helping virtually. That was the bit
Yeah,
that,
right. And
but
that's a tricky thing on its own, right? Having virtual assistants and you're
yeah,
working with them remotely. I think a lot of people worry about what they're going to do. Are they doing the job? And are they performing? Like all those kinds of stuff. Now, just so I can give everyone context here, Cheryl has, as part of her business, a virtual assistant arm, which is probably one of your founding businesses, I think,
yeah,
from if I'm correct. And it's kind of the context that Cheryl's talking about. So she helps people find virtual assistants. Tell me, so that's a question, right? So a lot of people okay, I want to get a virtual assistant. I want to find the right one, or but then there's all these concerns, these fears, right?
Mm.
When am I going to get? Am I going to be wasting my time? How much energy is it going to take for me to get that person? What do I have to do to get that person on board? Like, it's a lot. Walk us through what you would advise about finding the best or a good quality virtual assistant.
I'm going to even pull it back a little bit further because one thing I actually put a pause on people before throwing people at problems. So
Ah,
I want to know. So there's a particular model that we use where it's called strategy, systems, and then superstars.
say that
Strategy,
again. Say it again.
strategy,
Yeah.
systems, and superstars. You need to have
Strategy,
all
systems, and
three
superstars. I get it.
to
Yes.
scale. You think
Right.
about it, everything that you do starts off with a strategy. And to support that strategy, you need to have the right systems in place. And it's only when you have the right systems and then you plug in the superstars. So superstars can be anyone, could be you, it's basically your team, right? And once we start off with what's the strategy? All right, say for example, I want to and people will start with superstars and people first, but they don't realize it becomes unclear. Once you have a clear strategy, so say for example, I want to be able to do more sales. I'm spending too much time doing my emails and everything else. All right, at its base, I'm spending too much time just doing menial things, right? So the strategy is to unlock you from doing sort of low value tasks, for example. My
Right.
strategy is my goal is to do more high value things. Okay, great. So identify what that means. So you have to then go, well, I'm doing all these things now. And so we have a tool called the task shredder that says, I'm doing all these things now
Love it.
that 50 things, right? And a lot of people, once they do that exercise, they're like, I didn't realize I was doing so
The
much.
task shredder. I
The
love that.
task shredder. People love it. It's like a brain dump. You're like almost doing a brain blip vomit on a piece of paper. Because we don't. Like as business owners, how often do we take an audit, an audit of what it is that we do? We just do
Yes.
shit because shit needs to be done, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then you don't realize how much of that, like doing an audit and shredding your task, you then go, which of these do I actually need to be doing? Right?
So
Which
good.
of I actually need to be doing, and what is if my business, and this is a great rule of thumb, if your business is making $1 million, for example, in revenue, your worth is your time is about $500 an hour.
$500 an hour. That's a low budget for an entrepreneur, I think.
That is at
We
least
should be valuing ourselves at the highest possible value. That's my opinion anyway.
absolutely. But then you see, then if you use that as a bit of a rule of thumb, then you look at everything that you're doing, you go, is this a $500 an hour return on
Right.
investment?
Yeah, exactly.
That's generating me $500 an hour at
So
least,
good.
at
Yes.
very least. And so using the task shredder, you can do that and start to see which of the things that you go, I don't need to be doing that. I don't need to be doing that, right? And then you can start to then go, right, I can delegate this to someone else. But before you do that, you want to put the systems in place. So we got the strategy now. We can see what the tasks are. We have the strategy, we put in the system, which could be the process. Like, what's the process of doing all of this? What's each of the process? Do you have a documented SOP? But then also, then could you use technology to make that process more efficient? And once you've done that, then you go to who is the superstar that needs to do it?
That
Because
is
then
so good.
And so I go back, like before anyone starts talking to me about virtual assistants, I'm going, let's go back and really see how we can do things more efficiently, use technology, maybe use AI, and then plug in your virtual assistant because your virtual assistant is going to be the person that's running your system.
So good. So good. I'm going to recap on that. So it's understanding your strategy. So it's like what is the best way I can remove myself from these tasks, getting rid of the mundane. So having a list, maybe 50 or whatever things that you do that you need to get rid of. So you create a picture. You call that the strategy. This is how I'm reading it anyway. Then the next thing is you have to create a system. So that would be a process or a flow chart
Yeah.
kind of thing of how it all comes together.
Yeah.
And then the third thing would be, look, because you obviously you're going to hire 20 people at one time, right? You've got to kind of trickle it. But that process, I think what I'm reading, then creates clarity so that you know where you can start filling in those gaps and start removing those tasks from your
Absolutely.
strategy.
Clarity is the key part there, Matt, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they just want to get stuff off their plate.
Yeah.
And they're like, I just want a unicorn that can do all the stuff that I used to do
Everything.
because I had no other choice. I had to do everything.
Yeah.
And once you have much more clarity, then you can sort of segment it out to be able to go, oh, this is the marketing hat. Oh, this is a sales hat. This is a
Yeah.
client care. This is
Because
a
they're different personas. They're different. You can't have one person doing everything as much as what you'd love to, right? It's you have to segment the mindsets and the personalities and the flow structure of work and the feeling of empowerment, I think, for each individual position, right?
Yeah. And one of the key things I always say is, as a business owner, what do you need to do to help your people succeed?
Yeah.
That's the core of going, what do I need to provide to them? How do I support them to do the very best? Because when they're doing the very best, then they're going to help me be my best.
And you have a system for that because that's a big context you're talking about. Like, how do you get the business owner to empower their team? I think leadership is a big gap these days. And do you have a process or how would you go around helping business owners empower their team? Give me dive into that a little bit because that's quite interesting.
That's a huge one. And admittedly, Matt, I've definitely seen that being a business owner doesn't make you a great leader
No,
necessarily.
or a
Leading
good communicator.
or a good communicator. And as you grow a team, whether it's local or virtual or whatever, you've got to be a good a strong communicator and have great, like really like strong leadership skills, because leadership skills are ultimately the things that are going to have people understand and be influenced by what you do.
Too.
Right?
And those are things that you can definitely learn. Even if you're not naturally gifted with communication or leadership, these are things that you can ultimately practice and learn. It's just a matter of applying it, right? I think.
You've got to, it's a learned thing. So leadership, there's there are two different things. So leadership, a lot of that leadership side of things has to do with your own personal development.
Yeah.
Huge part in your own personal development and growing in yourself. If you're a business owner and you tell me that you haven't grown as a person, um, and your business has, I'd say I'm going to call you out as a liar, because you see
Oh,
that businesses grow
yeah.
aligned with how the person grows, the leader grows. Because
Correct.
no one wakes up one day and knows exactly every single aspect of how to run their business, right?
Oh,
There's a whole growing aspect of that.
yes, exactly. You're so right. So tell me, in your opinion, what do you see? You're filling obviously a gap in the market, but what do you see in your industry that people struggle with the most?
They struggle with really simplifying their business in a way that they can bring on other people to help them run it.
How do you mean?
So a lot of people have how they run their business and what their business is in their head.
Right.
And they feel that they're the best people to run the business or do the task.
Right.
And so what the big problem is actually letting go of control.
Right.
So
And do you think that's a big problem for a lot of people is letting go control?
it's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. Control doesn't necessarily need to be a negative thing. Control can
Yeah.
also be when you're being kind as well. Like when you go, I don't want to give someone. So I've come across where people are like, I've got my team, but I don't want to inconvenience anyone. So I'll just do it. It'll take me 5 minutes. Have you heard that before? I've heard that so many times. I'm like,
That resonates with me so much because I can yeah I can resonate with that because I've done that and I do that. I
Yeah.
don't think there's any entrepreneur that doesn't do that and wants to be like, for me, when I was doing one-on-one selling, right? And I would sell, and I became really good at selling. Like it was what I knew. I knew my product, I knew my offer, I knew everything crystal clear. And so offsetting and hiring a sales team was tough because they weren't doing it as good as me.
Yeah.
And so any dip in performance was like, how can I couldn't get them to understand my perspective. But it's, even though they were doing a good job, it's like there's that thing of letting go of the control and and the thing that you're talking about, empowering them, right? You got to give them the knowledge and stuff. But I was like that. I don't want to give it away.
Yes.
And then because you do that, you end up doing those yourself. And so I ended up doing all the sales calls myself, and that can burn you out. Like it burned me
Absolutely.
out, right? And
Absolutely.
if you don't have the capacity to leverage your systems, or give other people control, you're always going to end up burning out.
Yeah, absolutely. So control, like I said, it doesn't need to be a negative thing all the time, but control is also when you are, to a certain extent, robbing your team from growing because
Mm,
you held back. And
so
often
good.
other team want to be able to do more for you. They want to be, if you're a good leader and you've inspired them and they're, you've influenced them, they actually want to do more. But they go, well, if Matt or Cheryl, you keep holding on to stuff, how do we grow?
Yeah,
Right.
so
And so
true.
that's probably the biggest thing that I see, people that unawareness of we're still holding on to control, and by doing that we actually are stifling how quickly we grow.
That is so true. So I'm going to spin it around a bit, and we're going to talk about the big picture. Tell me, are you a big picture person or a detailed person?
Ooh, I say I'm a big picture. I do. Oh, I'm not a detail person. No, I'm a rainbows person.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a
Rainbow, and by rainbows, you mean you're looking at the big dream and the bigger picture, like where you want to head, your goals, your vision, your plans, that
yeah,
type of stuff. Um, and obviously, I would say I'm a big picture person too. Sahara's more of the details person,
yeah.
and we're very crystal clear about that. But for you and your business, obviously there needs to be detail as well. How do you manage the big picture and the details of running your business on a day-to-day basis?
Have you heard the term the visionary and the integrator?
No.
So an integrator is like an operations manager, is the detail person. And this is why you and Sahara work so well together. Not saying that she's not visionary, but you're a visionary, she's an operations, she's an integrator. So I think it's really important that as business owners, we are aware of what our strengths and weaknesses are. So my team knows I'm a rainbows person. We joke about this often. They'll be like, I'll be like, this is what I have in my mind. I want, this is the vision. And they're like, okay, we sit down. And then I have people in my team who I know are great operators. I know because we've hired so many hundreds of people, we've interviewed so many hundreds of thousands of people by now. What are the character aspects that make them good operators? They're not great visionaries, and that's okay because that's not their skill set. I want them to be good operators because then they're the ones that go, Cheryl, let's break that down. What does that mean in terms of systems, right? And then what does that mean in terms of what do we need to put in place the structure to then be able to execute? I'm like, thank you. Because I was like over here. Because you can have big dreams, you can have great, whatever of vision. But if you don't have a clear way of how that's going to be delivered, then that's just all going to keep ending up being a big dream.
Nice. So that's a really good context. So you actually have a skill of finding good operators
Yeah,
to manage the details in businesses. That
absolutely.
is so good. So you've talk to me about what that looks like, fine tuning, and because most, I think personally, that most entrepreneurs who run a business, who are at the helm or at the front, are big picture. Like they're driving it, they're motivated by goals and vision and purpose, all that type of stuff. And an operator is somebody that can follow or be part of that team and they're thinking about, like you just said, the processes, the details, and just like Sahara does, she's always thinking about that. Whereas I'm like, let's just move forward. So you've got the skill of finding these people, and that's huge, right? That's huge for a business. If you have an operator or somebody that can help you create the processes,
Mm.
talk to me about how you find those people. Like, well, what does that look like?
It's been years of fine tuning that aspect because like I said, we've hired and hired and fired and interviewed so many people, and we realized, we use this profile as one of our tools, DISC.
Yeah,
So it's a profiling tool which identifies what sort of your innate and learned strengths, personality attributes are.
right. Yeah,
But it's also making sure that the business owner is aware of what their personality traits are, for
yeah,
example. So
yeah.
you're a D, say you're dominant, so you're someone who's really sort of A type, action orientated. I wonder if Matt is a D. Um, there's an I who they call an influencer, so they tend to be the ones that are quite out there, quite loud. There's an S, which is more they like to bring people together, so like more your customer service. And C, which is like your compliance. So compliance people are like your accountants generally, people who are detail orientated. So if
Right.
I'm hiring for a particular role, so if I sort of go in my mind, like my EAs, I know what type of EAs I need. I almost need like a bodyguard. So I like people who have a D and a C. So they are strong. So they've got, because my EAs need to be almost like my gatekeepers to be able
Yeah,
to push
gotcha.
back on
Yeah,
things as well,
yeah.
and be able to protect my time, right?
Your
So I need
bodyguard.
my bodyguard, physical. Actually, my current EA, she's physically almost my bodyguard. She's about, a head taller than I am, but she she actually she does she maintains my sanity, right, because she does push back on certain things and she'll help manage it. So I need someone who has that attribute of a D, but detail orientated, that they enjoy being able to go, how can I help you organize yourself, right? Because
Yeah,
I'm not a natural organizer, so I need to be surrounded by people who I know are great at that organizing or that detail side of things, but it's specific to that type of role. So you need to be clear on the type of roles that you're filling.
yes.
Like, what are you
Right.
actually, what do they need to have to be
Well,
successful?
I suppose the question comes for me is that there's a lot of solo entrepreneurs out there
Yeah.
who are running around headless chicken doing the thing, and they obviously need to get their first hire, right? And I don't think that in the most instances as coaches, consultants, and experts, the running or the infrastructure of a business is very similar. Right? It
Yeah.
doesn't really change much, except for maybe a few nuances here and there. There's marketing, there's social media, there's managing inbound messaging, there's outbound messaging, there's this thing that kind of repeats. So usually, and it happened with me, you need your first hire, right? You need your first
Mm.
person that's going to be and I was very fortunate. I found a rock star. But be that as it may, you need that first person that can take you to that stage where you can start handing stuff off. What would you suggest would people need to do or to think about to find their first person, right? Because when you have your first person, getting to the second and the third is a little bit easier. It's
Yeah.
just there's a psychological thing that happens, right? Can I afford it? What does it mean to have this person? What do I have to do to get that first person hired? Talk to us about that.
I would say the first person, more often than not 9 out of 10 times, is an EA, like an executive assistant.
Gotcha.
Why I
So,
say that
so somebody that's your personal, like handling a lot of your personal load, and
personal,
what is an executive assistant? Explain that first.
they're so yeah, like I said, they're like a personal assistant. An executive assistant is really someone who does take control over what are your schedules like. My EA goes through, like, she's my filter in my inbox.
Right.
I look at my inbox maybe twice a day, and she's able to help me filter through and label and everything else. Sometimes she sees someone request a meeting, she'll jump in there and go, "Hi, I'm Jam, Cheryl's EA, let me organize that for you." Right? So she's already on top of 80% of my emails before I even touch it. And that
Wow.
is huge for a lot of entrepreneurs.
80% of your emails. Goodness me.
Well, she knows me that well now, and she understands what the needs are, how to respond to certain emails. And often
So good. How
they
much
are,
time does that save? Like that's a insane amount of time.
it's huge. Like, how many entrepreneurs are like looking at their emails 20 times a day, at least? And the 20 times is not just I'm looking at the email, it's distracting you from the other things that you should be focused on.
Yes.
So it's only
Love
the
it.
really important things that she puts in a folder for me that says Cheryl to reply.
Wow.
Everything else, I've seen what she's actioned on. Because again, she's got to that point where she's built up, I've built up the trust, and she's built up her confidence in terms of how she responds on my behalf.
So good. That's amazing. And so finding an EA as your first task or your first hire, that will be
Mm-hmm.
somebody that kind of helps you manage your day-to-day grind.
Yeah.
What types of tasks would they kind of typically take on?
Calendars. Calendar.
Calendars?
So calendar management, you might have a calendar booking system, but there'll always be people that'll be like, can't do that. Do you have more, whichever? And so we've got a whole team as well, not forgetting. So we've got a whole
Yeah.
team, we've got clients, we've got, so she's out there helping with calendar management. She books all my flights, accommodation, anything that
Wow.
happens. She
Yeah.
helps organize all my podcast hosts, basically anything that any administrative task, she helps handle all of that.
That is so good. Because the context of what we're talking about today in our podcast is about focus. I'm going to start diving in a little bit about mindset and some of the things that you use in your business in terms of this, because ultimately systems and leverage and hiring teams, virtual assistants, it's all about winning back your time. I
Absolutely.
just recently read a really awesome book about winning back your time, and I can't remember the author. I should remember this stuff, but he talked about. I read so many books these days, but he talked about how you, as an entrepreneur, are not there to hire people, but you're there to buy back your time.
Mm.
So looking at what are the things, like we've just covered all of this stuff. It's about getting focused. But the point of this is that the more time that you win, the more engaged you can be, the more focused you can stay on your game, the better your business is going to grow. And
Absolutely.
when your business is growing, you feel better, your staff feels better, your team feels better, and it's a better environment. Talk to me a little bit about some of the shifts that you've made over the last few years from a mindset perspective that keeps you on your game every day.
Fantastic question. And there've been so many huge, huge shifts. I would say the top three, and not in no particular order. The big shift was moving into the mindset of a investor as opposed to someone that's running a business.
Explain that.
So an investor is like someone that's looking into the business, right? And if someone's
Start again, Cheryl.
all right,
Start again. We just went off there. Say again.
shifting from the mindset of being a business owner to an investor. And what does that mean? As the business owner, you sort of almost like you've got blinkers and you're looking at your business in this sort of fashion. Whereas an investor is someone that's looking from the outside in. And when you can look at your business as an investor, you're making decisions on going, all right, it's almost like looking over it, saying, hey, what are the aspects that I need to pull? What are the levers and buttons I need to pull, right? If I'm an investor into your business, what would I say and what would I want to see to ensure that it's a business that I'm investing in that's going to grow sustainably, as the right people, as the right systems in place. Right.
Goodness, that's really good.
That was a big shift for me because as a business owner, I admittedly as well unconsciously was controlling things to make things comfortable for my team.
Yeah.
It was when I moved moved my identity, I guess, as an investor, and I just went what I thought was doing the right thing by having my team feel comfortable. I wasn't challenging them enough. I wasn't actually pushing them enough to be able to allow them to grow, as well or as quickly as they wanted to as well. And
How
it
did
does,
you,
of course, but
sorry,
not.
how did you come across this context of being an investor? Because I like this. I really, that's, my head's just blown off.
Yeah, yeah.
Explain to me where that came from and how did you come about that?
That was part of a coaching. That was one of my mentors that helped me create that big shift in my mind.
Right.
And the second part, so that was one big one because I was like, whoa, okay, well, and it doesn't mean you have to sell your business, doesn't mean you have to get rid of your business, but you're just looking at your business in a different form. You're looking at as an investor, am I making right investment decisions when I'm doing this, this, and this?
So good. When you look at it from the perspective of an investor, it's an ROI decision, right?
Yeah.
The thing that I'm doing now, what's the return on the investment I'm going to get down the track or now or down the track? And that is such a powerful way to look at it. Never thought of that before, but that's very, very cool. Learned something really good today. So every decision you make, every bit of money that you spend, any risk that you face is based on that decision of an investor thinking from, if I was an investor in your business, what would the conversations look like? What would I suggest to you or recommend, right? Like that is so good. Thank
If
you.
I'm an investor that's looking at potentially buying your business, what would
Gotcha.
I want to see? If you don't have any
Yeah.
systems in place, then your valuations just plummeted. You don't have much of a valuation. But if you've got systems and people, and I go, fantastic, great profitability, then all of a sudden your valuation's gone up.
So what's number two?
Number two, this was a big personal one for me. Again, it was something that my mentor of mine helped me see, that my business is there to help me I'm creating a business for freedom. I'm creating a freedom business. I'm not creating a business to save people. This is a personal one for me.
Wow. That's
Because
deep.
it was deep. Yeah, there were tears. There was definitely tears. Because for a large part, and this was part of my, just in terms of one of my missions, was always around, as you mentioned at the beginning, helping people create freedom through their businesses, right? But there's a real core aspect of me going, I want to save so many of these, whether it's business owners or people working for business owners. A bit of history in terms of why I chose to have virtual assistants in my business and other businesses, right? Because I was wanting to have all our virtual assistants are from the Philippines. And when I was younger, we had helpers from the Philippines, but they had to leave the Philippines to work overseas in Singapore. A lot of them at the time, and this was 30 years ago, there was no internet. You could probably call your family once a week. So many of them were mothers who left their children and their families overseas. They're from the Philippines to work overseas. And I remember as a young child really not liking that idea at all, because I would see them cry in the middle of the night because their toddler or 2-year-old, their family was in the Philippines. They couldn't talk to them. They couldn't see them. And as a mother, I was like, I never want anyone to have to leave their family. And I would one day create something where they could all work from home, be with their families, and never have to make that decision again.
Cool.
And so that has always been, even just saying that I've got shivers, that is still the core of why we do what we do. But I think when I first started, it was the reason I was trying to save, as opposed to it being the reason that I need to, number one, like as they say, you need to fill from a full cup. You can't fill from an empty cup. If I create a business that creates freedom for me, then I know I can share so much more on how I can teach other people to do the same thing and live out their full lives, right? I need to be the model for that, and I need to do that first before anything else.
So good.
So that
So
was
good.
a huge, 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 huge shift for me from that aspect.
Building a business of freedom, because we get all caught up in our businesses sometimes, so
Yeah.
much to do, and we want to do. So I see this a lot. People want to, shiny object syndrome, right? How many things can I do? Should I do this thing? Should I do that thing? And having a business of freedom, when you boil it down, it's actually not complicated.
Mm,
It is actually simple. It's just, number one, we as entrepreneurs need to focus, like that, stay in a straight line and not get distracted and get caught with fear of failure and all that. But if we stay in a straight line and we build a system that we keep iterating, like the business building process is actually not that complicated. It's actually quite simple. It's just what happens, and what I see is, number one, people have this fear of failure running around in their head. And so
mm,
the fear of failure then brings on things like imposter syndrome, procrastination, and all these other things. And people get succumb to that, and then they, stop. And the other is being distracted, right? People around them, technology, new shiny objects. What's this new thing? So these two things are like disrail people, derail people. And if you think about it, right, from my perspective, like, to have your goals and your dreams is like, it's just a straight line. Like,
mhm.
you're here now and you've made a decision. I want to have freedom. I want to have a business that works for me, provides fulfillment. That's a decision that you make.
Yeah.
So all you have to do to cross that bridge is say, I've got to do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Mm.
And when you got a system running and and you keep improving on that system, the business side of it becomes easier because the system drives the engine, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that's when you say, talking about building a business of freedom, it doesn't happen. First thing we as entrepreneurs need is we need commitment. We need to be committed to that thing, right? Then we need a system, which is what we've been talking about today, and how important those systems are.
Mm.
And then fundamentally, we need the support to
Yeah.
get us through all those pieces. And with those things running in a straight line, doing the thing it's supposed to be doing to get you where you got to go, then it's
Absolutely.
inevitable that you're going to have the thing that you want, right? I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to that whole thing about strategy, systems, and superstars. Like, what's your strategy? I want to create a freedom business. Okay, great. What are the systems you need in place? And then what is the support and superstars you need to get? Everything, it all hinges on that. And
Very
when you
good.
get clear on what that means, what does a freedom business mean to you? It's going to be very different for everyone, right?
Very good.
And the figures around that, the numbers around that, where you live and everything, it's going to be so different. I think that's another thing that's been so important when I go to the third thing about, well, my realization in business is you've got to do you. You do you, right?
So
There's
good.
always going to be someone out there that's going, I'm building $100 million business. I want to have 5 Ferraris. I want to be, whatever that might be. And if that floats your boat, then you do you. There are going to be other people that are just like, I just want to have time with my kids doing stuff. I want to homeschool them. That's not my thing, but you might want to homeschool them. But you do you. And if you have a business that allows you to do that, then that's your freedom business. That's
So
your
good.
business, and because it's so easy for us to compare ourselves because there's so many people out there, particularly with social media, that are like, I'm doing amazing, look at me. And everyone's like, do I, is that, I maybe that's what success looks like. And maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I need to aspire to. But no, don't be distracted by that. I think this is the part of being, you've got to get really clear and congruent with who you are as a person and what really holds true to you, to then be able to be clear, have clarity around what that goal is for you, not
So
anyone else.
good.
for you, and you've got to fix your own shit first to then build the business that allows you to create that path to what your goal is.
So tell me, what about number 3?
That was number 3, Matt.
Was that number 3? Thank you. Because just so clarify that then. Number 1 was?
Oh, see, I'm the rainbow person. I don't remember so my numbers. Get an
You just
EA.
said there were 3 things.
Should I refer to my EA? She's got this in a note taker somewhere.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on. That's awesome. People can rewind and listen to what you've been saying. That's awesome. So, tell us about some of your success stories that you've had so far with some of your clients, some of the things that you've been helping people with. Give the audience a bit of an understanding of what you do and how you've been helping people.
The big success stories are, and I get really excited, is when I see clients who I've seen them from the very beginning of their journey with us. And because we record and we do what we call growth plan sessions. So when they first come in, we create their growth plan session, and it says where they are in their business, but we're using particular measures that are important to them. And so they'll be like, this is the revenue or profit. And then I'll be like, well, what are your lifestyle goals as well? Right? I ask about that. How many hours are you working? What do you actually want to work towards? And when I've seen them in there before and then see them a year or 6 months or, 2 years later, and they've created what they wanted with our support, and they've created freedom, and they're booking in 5-week holidays overseas, and they've got 750,000 in profit and things like that, and a team where they run everything. For me, that's the greatest success stories that I see.
And how many of those have you got?
Oh, how many of those do I have? I should probably count them. We have, I can't tell you in numbers.
So you have countless at the moment.
But we have, because when I see them, and they're not, it's when I see people where it's on Facebook or whichever, having those holidays when I knew they couldn't have those holidays, when I meet with them and they're not as stressed and overwhelmed and frazzled like it was when I first met, when they're growing teams and they're like, Cheryl, we've got all this revenue now, and I've got people to replace me. For me, it's those small wins that are the things that I know that ticks off the boxes to help them get to where they want to be.
Can you give me an example of a client's journey or a client's story? You don't have to call them by name. You can call them by name if you want. That's up to you. But
Yeah.
give me a description of what a client journey might look like with you, as they go through the process, and how they've had results and had success in their business.
Yeah, sure. So I'd say, and they're different sizes. I'll probably start with one that's sort of a
Just pick one.
small size business, where there was just the two of them. They're property-based business, and they
A couple.
it was a couple, but the wife was sort of just helping with marketing and some admin work, but there was another property consultant that there was the owner and another property consultant, but the owner was still doing everything. Like, he was, again, really, really frazzled. And at the time they were probably making about $500,000 in revenue. Profit margin was pretty good. It was sort of 70%. So if you do the maths, it was like 350,000.
Really good.
Which is really good. But he says, I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything. I can't go away with my family. I've got flexibility, but I don't have freedom, right? It's different. Flexibility and freedom are two different things. I think we've got to get clear about that. And I said, okay, well, what does freedom mean for you? Like, what are the numbers to support that? And what does that mean in terms of the role that you're playing in the business? Right? I'm just going to highlight the role that you play in the business, not the chief everything officer. Everyone thinks CEO means CEO, as in the big boss, but it often means chief everything officer. We don't want to be that. We want to be, and he said he wanted to just focus on the sales aspect. He didn't like actually doing sourcing of properties, which is very interesting. So I'm like, okay, well, now we've got clarity, we've got the strategy. Let's come up with a system to help you do that. And so we put in things like a CRM in place, a project management tool. We also helped him put a virtual assistant that runs his systems. And through doing that, I mean, his whole business has transformed. He's got more property consultants now, but he says the team 80-90% of whatever happens in this business now, he goes, I only bring on clients, the whole team does everything else.
So good.
And he's at, I said before, it was like on target to do $1 million in profit.
Wow. Annually?
Small team, yes. And he's got
Wow.
five people in the team. And he's going on holidays soon and things like that. Like that is incredible.
So you've taken them from 500, stressed out, overworked, to $1 million a year in profit, where they're now going on holidays and having a much better time and more freedom.
Yeah, and he can choose to not do the sales calls, but he wants to hold on to that. So he's control of it, right? And he goes, "Oh,
I can relate.
I can improve on this," and it's a choice to him now because he's not pushing business really. Business sort of comes through and all that because he's like he's living his freedom lifestyle, right? And he now has an opportunity to bring on start another business and so on, and that's what it is. It gives you the opportunity, it gives you more time, like you said, to then go, well, what do I do with the time that I have? I can do other things.
So good. I love that. That's a huge result, by the way. Congratulations. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis to stay focused?
Oh, I like this too. We talk about this all the time as well, Matt. What do I do? I am not an innately focused person. I have definite ADHD tendencies. If you ask my husband, if I sat in front of him, he'd be like, can you please sit still, stop fidgeting, and stop talking about 10 different things at once? So it's not my natural.
Yes.
And don't throw dogs in the room, and then I'll be like, you throw 2 dogs in the room and I'm gone, right? So it's not my natural state to be focused. And so I've had to train myself to have routines in my life that help me stay focused. And that will be in the morning, I need to do my meditation. I need to do my exercise. I need, for myself, I need to go for my walks on the beach to ground myself. Like those are physical and mental aspects that help me stay focused. It's because
what time do you wake up every day on an ongoing basis?
Usually about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on the weekends. Sleep in. But
so you would on a typical day, you would wake up, then what?
I meditate, do some breath work.
Yeah.
And do some strength training. So particularly, and I've been reading this, particularly women over 40. I know I look 25, but I'm over 40 now. Women over 40.
40? No.
Yes, I know.
Oh,
and the filters on Zoom are so good. And like women over 40, you need to strength train for a whole lot of reasons. So do the strength training. It's also my time with my husband and I strength train together. So we do that. I'll walk the dogs because often he's off to work. I walk the dogs on the beach, and the beach has been the most healing thing that has happened in my life. Just being grounded, feet in the sand, go for a swim or whatever. Just getting that morning sun. So that's a huge thing as well. So balancing your circadian, I can't never say it. Your natural
circadian rhythm.
Yes, that's it.
That's the word.
And often if with the kids are at school, then getting them into, that school routine. After I drop them off, I do block off a bit of time in the morning before I have any meetings with team or external to just plan out my day. Plan out my day. What are the key things I need to achieve today? The non-negotiables, and then there's the 500 list, right? But then going through that list and going, who can I delegate this to? Am I the best person to do that? And then I say, And then I send my list to my amazing EA going, good morning. These are the things. Can you help me with these things? And I get into my day. And
What time does your day typically start? Like your work day, not
my
your
work day probably at
10 a.m.
10 a.m. till about 3, because that's when I got to get the kids.
So you're working from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So about 5 or 6 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah. And
Amazing.
it's and I look at it. I know I do a bit of an audit on my calendar quite often to identify if I'm spending that time on strategic tasks or non-strategic tasks.
So growing or wasting time, is that what you're talking about?
Growing, am I doing things, am I spending time on growing my business? So not forgetting that time is also spread across not just only my business. I've got other projects and businesses that happen as well. So that's my work, that's my working time.
Wow, so good. And that's 5 days a week or 6 days a week?
No, five, yeah.
Excellent. So you've fine-tuned your systems and processes so well that you're really running your business in within 5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Correct?
And I have to say, I'm thankful that because my kids are my start and stop, right? Because to be honest, because I love working, I love problem solving, I do love what I do. But if I didn't have them start stop, I would actually keep going and going and going.
Gotcha.
Not
Yeah.
healthy. So for someone like me who's like, I need to be working on lots of things all the time, it actually, because I have to stop and go get the kids, I like that I've got my definitive time to go. I will work at my top capacity in this time.
And how focused does that keep you? Because you know you've got only so much time to work within, and you have to get certain things done, right? I think that's also a huge driver in focus, is saying instead of letting things run out, like you said, if your kids weren't there, you just keep working on stuff. But say you have a time limit, so you're going to pick up your kids. You're like, I have to get this stuff done now, so I've got to finish it before then, and that drives your motivation to stay focused. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my calendar, I've got color coded and time blocked everything that I need to spend my time on.
So good.
Again, because being a ADHD brain, I'm like, if I don't have that, then my brain's going to get overwhelmed, and then like I'm like butterflies, butterflies, right? And so I literally need something to force me to have a routine and be clear on what I need to do, because personally, I actually struggle when there's too much time for things. I
Yeah.
need something that causes urgency.
Pressure. Yeah, exactly. I think
That sends me questions 5 minutes before the podcast. That's when I read it 5 minutes before the podcast. You sent it to me 5 days before? No, sorry.
you
I
still
didn't.
only read it 5 minutes before.
Yeah, I'll still read it 5 minutes before.
No, that's good because I can relate to that. I think on a grander scale, most driven entrepreneurs that I've ever met all say pretty much the same thing. I think I've got ADHD, but we've never been tested. It's never been proven, but we can feel that, right? Like if we're not doing something we're passionate about, then we get distracted really easily. I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day about this, and because he's got kids that have been what do you call it, diagnosed with ADHD and other symptoms. And we were talking about this, and that most adults, like, because you can't get the ADHD test, right? But you're just like, I see that every entrepreneur I speak to, they're like, I'm pretty sure I got ADHD, and I'm the same. Like, it's just like, but it's a superpower as well.
It's a superpower. Yeah, absolutely. I embrace it. But I know, and it's something that, again, that whole personal development, the more awareness you have, you go, how do I manage this better? Because I
Yeah.
know I don't have the frameworks around me and the systems around me. That's when the wheels fall off. Like so on when I'm on holidays, I really struggle because I'm like, I need to do,
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to do. So,
Panic mode. Kids around.
I said to my husband, I'm like, maybe there are times when I'll be like, maybe I should have just stayed home and not do anything and stuff. He goes, no, you'll actually drive yourself crazy if you don't do stuff. You'll just create something to do.
Something to do. Yeah.
Right.
I
So
love that.
I need to have structure in my framework for myself to keep myself sane.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. I'm the same. Have to have the checklist, have to have routine, have to have structure, because if it's not there, I'm all over the shop like a fairy running around chasing fairy dust.
Yes.
So, yeah, one of my tips or tricks that I do now, which I think has been a game changer for me, is I like to wake up early in the morning. Like I'm a 4:30 a.m. person, and I find that during the middle of the day, I'm like, I got no energy. So
Mm,
I used to work out and train early in the morning, and then go and start work. So what I found, and I think somebody was talking about this on YouTube, where I kind of got onto this, is that I found I'm waking up now, 4:30, getting ready, and I work for about 4 hours in the morning. And
mm,
in that 4 hours, I'm like so super productive because my brain is firing, and it's like I don't do anything else. I just time block, boom, get
yeah,
creativity stuff done, like all the creation stuff. And that 4 hours, I get more done than I ever used to get done in a whole week.
yeah,
And that's been a huge game changer for me personally.
yeah.
Um, but the time blocking component that you spoke about, that made me think of that, because when you time block and you specifically have a time for you to do these things, the
Yes.
productivity goes up. And if you give yourself a time limit to do things, it just keeps you more engaged and focused.
Yeah, absolutely. And what gets scheduled more often than not gets done.
Yeah,
So put
using a calendar.
your to-do list into your calendar as well. Then you find time, and then you'll actually see, you go, well, maybe I don't have enough time, then maybe I do need to delegate more to other people.
We all need to delegate. There's no such thing as delegate more. We all just need to delegate. That's the key ingredient, right?
Yeah,
Cheryl,
exactly.
it's been so good catching up with you. I've really enjoyed this conversation and chat that we've had.
Been
Um,
fantastic. Thank you,
before
Matt.
we go, is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners? Any advice, any tips, any information you would like to pass on before we head off?
Well, I know we've shared quite a lot, but in terms of businesses out there that are looking to say if you're absolutely lost as to where you are and where in the business needs fixing. We've created a scaling scorecard, which basically helps you assess in all the different areas, the main areas of your business, what you might have missing in those parts. So we've created a scaling scorecard, and it will help you then identify, as part of that framework of systems, strategy, and superstars, areas that you may need to improve on. So if you would like that scorecard and get a clearer idea of what you need to be working on, I'll drop a link to here we go. I'll pop it in the comments there, and Matt can share. And
I'll drop that in the comments. I appreciate that so much. So, just to be clear, what you're offering is there is what is it called? A scaling scorecard.
scaling scorecard. Yes, so you
Right.
can rate yourself as to how you're performing in terms of those three main stages that I mentioned: strategy, systems, and superstars. And it
Yep.
will give you a clear idea where in your business you actually need to focus on as the next step to help you get to the next level.
Brilliant. So good. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Cheryl. And it's been an honor and privilege to be speaking to you today.
As
Thank you
always,
so much for your time.
thank you, Matt. And it's always great to catch up with you. You take care, my friend.
Awesome. We'll talk again soon. Bye now.